Life Stories Live.
To parody music, well,
Gotcha.
popular songs where we've changed the lyrics to have a Christian message.
Gotcha.
So, we could take all sorts of songs like, the Village People, YMCA.
Mm-hmm.
Our version was Why Not Today? So the quality of the music is very, very much like the original,
Mm-hmm.
but the lyrics can punch a really, really powerful message. So you've got all the children working as absolute equals with adults,
Mm-hmm.
adults or children with additional needs. Doesn't matter if they can still do a puppet and interact and make a puppet come alive, whether you're shy. So all of this meant that we could encourage our young people who, through doing the puppets, they were expressing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
gaining confidence, growing in their faith. And then we found that, like our son David, after a while, they were gaining in confidence, and then they were doing drama out front at the holiday club. They were gaining the confidence to go out. So that made a massive difference. I mean, we went to see the musical Joseph, the musical Joseph in our local theatre. And one of our team had the crazy idea of saying, well, why don't we do it as a puppet show? So we said, well, we could do it. We auditioned and we did it with about 50 or 60 puppets. I mean,
Wow.
it made life hard work because he had so many brothers.
Right.
So there was like Joseph and his 11 brothers, plus all the choir and all the different people going on. So we needed like the full team of 25 people to do the show.
Okay.
But it was a full 2-hour show.
Wow.
So we end up with a massive fan at the end for his coat and everything. And it's an absolutely, really great show.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, we got a couple of invitations to do it elsewhere. And the long and short was 5 or 6 years later, we'd done over 75 performances.
Wow.
From Carlisle to Bournemouth. And, we'd travelled all over with the kids, doing sleepovers in churches.
Mm-hmm.
And we finished every show. And sometimes we did an afternoon and then an evening. And to build the stage to put on the show took 4 hours to actually get ready to do it.
Wow.
But we finished every show, and there was a very good friend who's passed away now, or myself, saying that Joseph, you've all enjoyed the show, but that's a true story.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph's life was not always easy. His family beat him up, sold him. He was a slave. He was in prison, but God was always with him.
Hey, excellent.
And our message was, our lives can sometimes be in a complete mess. The wheels will fall off your life. Things won't always be easy.
Mm-hmm.
But God will always be with you.
Excellent.
And
Now,
through that show, we reached out and touched thousands of lives, really.
Fantastic. It sounds like there was a lot of planning, creative thinking, and building went into the show. Does it take over your whole life, or is it a full-time job for you?
Pretty much. When I was doing Puppet Power at that time, I was still working as an accountant, right through until 2006. By which time we were getting to the point where we felt that God was saying to us that maybe this is something that we should be doing full time. For a number of years up to then, our relationship with One Way UK, as well as buying puppets from them, going to the conferences, we were running the training in the north of England and doing the training for One Way UK. But in 2006, we had an opportunity, and speaking with the founder of One Way UK, to kind of buy into the ministry. with a plan that after 3 years, we took it over completely. So we ran for a time with an office in Reading and an office in the Ice House Christian Centre in Grimsby, where we just rented some space. And then in 2009, Harry, who founded the ministry, retired. We took the full ownership of it, and our son David, when he was 18 at that point, came in as a director as well, an employee, and joined us full time as well. He'd just left school. He's going to be an engineer, and then 2 months before he went to university, he said, "I don't want to do that. I want to train in Christian ministry and youth work."
Wow.
And he had got a place at Cliff College to do a diploma in children's work and evangelism for 2 years, part-time, so working and doing it. And then after a year off after that, he then did another 2 years to do a degree in children's work and evangelism.
Excellent.
Which really helped mature him in a way, and give him some, really valuable training and experience.
Well, you mentioned the training, of course. Where does all the creativity come from, or where the ideas come from? You surely must. Do you see something and say, well, that would be a good idea, or do you just come up with it yourself?
A lot of it is kind of inspired. We really, really believe that God is a creative God, and we are made in his likeness. So surely that makes us creative, and we are all creative, and we use that creativity and express that in different ways. I mean, some people are great orators or musicians, are very gifted in medical or science. We're all different. A point in case is one of our lead puppet builder now, Cam, is in his late 20s, 26, 27. He joined our puppet team at the age of about 6.
Right.
He should have been 9, but he got in when he was 6. And he was just mad puppets, but so enthusiastic. And then after a number of years, he left the puppet team. He left coming to church. Because part of our puppet team, we say, if you're part of the team, you have to come to church. He left for family reasons, and then in 2000, when he was 18, he knocked on our office door and said, "Can I buy a puppet?" Well, yes. And then he came back a week later and said, "Can I buy another puppet? And do you still run that puppet team?" I said, "Well, yes." They said, "Well, can I join?" I said, "Well, yes, but you'll have to come back to church." So anyway, the week after he joined the team, he came back to church, and he's been at church ever since.
Wow.
Within a year or two, we were at a point where instead of buying puppets from China, we were wanting to more build our own. It gave us the creativity that we could build and design our own characters. We could change them and vary them. We had full control over that production. David had been trained by a guy that had built some puppets for Disney. So David had the skills to build the puppets. And we said, well, what about Cam? And he wasn't an achiever at work, at school, he wasn't academic, but as often the case, encouraged and challenged in the right way, he's a really, really gifted puppet builder.
Wow.
He can take a picture of a person and build a lookalike puppet for that. Or someone gave us a picture saying, I want a purple monkey, or I want an orangutan or a turtle.
Could we get one of Alan Jones?
Pardon?
Could we get one of Alan Jones if we sent it down to you?
Save yourself, George.
But he can take a puppet, a picture, and then build that puppet character. So, over the years, we've gone from building puppets for churches, schools. Over time, we're now building puppets for theme parks and for theatres. A theatre wanted to put on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but the logistics of dwarfs and using children, a real nightmare. But talking to us, we could build him some dwarf puppets. And he was one theatre director, because he could now put on his show. We created the 7 characters for him, who he wanted in a more of a modern look. And, the show was a great success.
Excellent.
But, Cam, through that, has then made a full commitment to the Lord and is very active in our own church and leads one of our outreaches that we run now. But that journey has been facilitated through the puppet ministry.
Puppets, yeah. I was going to ask you about One Way UK, because that's a very, very 70s statement, because when I became Christian, the old One Way we used to use when we were young Christians. Tell us a little bit about One Way UK and where they came from.
Well, originally, the founder, Harry, had gone over to America to to see friends or to a conference over there. And there was a ministry over there called One Way Street, who does what we do, build puppets, does training for churches, and support and encourage people to use puppets. And the owner and the director there challenged Harry and saying, well, we're doing this job here in America, but what about the UK? What about Europe? So it's from that, really, that One Way UK started as a kind of way of providing and resourcing churches here in the UK with puppets. And originally, I think they were bought from China and bought from America, and then sold here, and the training was done here. And then we got on board, as I said, in 2006, and then I've taken it over in 2009, so that we're building all our own puppets now. Unfortunately, the ministry in America finished in March. The main person there passed away with COVID last year. Wow. And it was the time for it to not continue, and so it's a real sad loss, because without resourcing the churches and equipping the churches and training the churches, it's such a vital part of One Way UK. We build puppets, we do the training, we encourage and inspire people to use their creativity through what we have created. And, you know, we were equipped and resourced to do what we've done through One Way UK. So our passion is to share that on and equip and train people to be passionate and resourcing and equipping them to do the job. The puppets, from being started as an outreach or within our own church, from that has been over the last 22 years, you know, we've done many different things in our church, you know, the courses and the evangelism and the mission work in the church. But the puppets has involved the young people in a special way. Yeah. We need to be building up and developing our young people to be the church leaders today and the future as well. And the puppet side of it has been a great way of involving them and developing them. And from that, it was our trip to Bournemouth with the Joseph musical that established a link that God used with a year later to introduce us to a guy from Africa, which led us out to Burkina Faso. So wow. we took half a dozen or 8 of our young people
LifeStories Live. Life Stories.
To Burkina Faso, where we were sleeping in mud huts and going to these African villages. Went to the university and spoke at the university in front of 1,000 students, witnessing in churches. But that kind of experience was transformational.
Wow.
To us. I mean, I think of all the, you know, one of the other life moments, there's nothing as real, you know, when you have to totally depend on the Lord.
Yes.
You when we went on the second time to Africa, there's about 10 or 12 of us. We arrived on the Saturday at 8 o'clock at night in Ouagadougou, the capital. We were leading the service the next day at 9 o'clock. And all our luggage, apart from the hand luggage that we'd got on us, arrived 2 days later.
Wow.
So we hadn't any spare clothes. We'd left some puppets 2 years before, because as well as training people, we wanted to equip them. So we'd gifted puppets. So there were some puppets there. The most important thing when you're on a mission trip with doing puppets is your puppets.
Exactly.
So with our hand luggage, we basically said you can put a pair of pants and a change of top in your hand luggage, along with a puppet. So we'd got some basic resources. We sat around and said, well, we have got enough. We can trust the Lord. And we did the service. And after 2 days, you know, the kids were saying, well, we've managed so far, even if we don't get our cases, we can
still carry on.
We can still carry on. to the point that at the end of the week, the girls and the kids we were saying, we don't need to take these clothes back. There's people here that need them more than us.
So you have the clothes as well.
And we were able to give, and even our daughter, bless her, who couldn't survive without hair straighteners and important things like this. When you lose what you hold as important,
yeah,
God shows you what you actually really do need. And it was that kind of life-changing experience that through the puppetry has made a life-changing difference to us. Excellent. And again, through One Way UK, we've had opportunities to go to Albania and work with a friend there who was from Grimsby, but was working and training and wanting to use puppets as a way of teaching in summer camps and in churches. We've been to Nigeria, my wife and I, Jenny and I. Again, we trained a group, and then like in Africa, where we'd taken our own church team to witness for that whole week, in Nigeria, we went for 10 days.
Wow.
We trained a group from a church plus another 20 or 30 people. But then we worked with that group of 7 or 8 that we'd trained to work through. So all the visits, all our outreach for that next week was with the group that we trained. So we were totally reliant. It was quite funny because having trained them all day on the Saturday, we went and did a Sunday school for about 200 children the next morning. If learning something is one thing, putting it into practice
is another.
In an hour lesson is something that's quite different. And we did it, and it was a bit manic. It was a bit manic. And we finished, and within an hour or two, we'd got a phone call from our host and the lead of the team we trained, saying, "Can you come round? We need more practice."
Now, you mentioned about that you've travelled the length of the country, you've travelled to various places in the world as well with your puppetry and bringing. How big an impact do you think that the puppetry has made for the gospel when you present your shows?
I think it makes a real impact, and I'm passionate about using puppets. I'm passionate about preaching the gospel, as well as building puppets. One Way UK, we obviously do the training. We produce a range of gospel illusions, magic tricks.
Okay.
Now, in Africa, particularly as other places, you've got to be very careful if you're doing magic, because there's different interpretations of understanding. Magic, yes. There's black magic and witch doctors out there, and you think that the last thing we want as Christians is to undermine the work of the churches. So we're very clear of what we're doing, and basically it's a visual aid. Yeah. To share a message. So we use illusions, we use storytelling, the puppets, all different ways, balloon modeling, okay, to tell stories. But what we're doing, and with all the puppets, it's making the story, the message, come alive in a personal way. Sometimes when what it's like in church, we sit there for week after week, maybe year after year, and we get very familiar with the gospel, with the stories. And, on Easter Sunday, we worship and we celebrate the fact that Jesus isn't dead, that he's risen from the dead, that he's alive. And we hear it and we're familiar with it, but sometimes that familiarity can take the awesomeness. We lose that marvel, that in a way, that sometimes that joy from it, it becomes a.
Life Stories Live.